When a 28-year-old man married to her demonstrated her power, 32-year-old alien queen could only shock. The Velanthi Empire had ruled the stars for 3,000 years. Their warships numbered in the millions. Their soldiers were tall, powerful, and bred for conquest. Their psychic abilities could crush the minds of lesser species. Every civilization they encountered had two choices: surrender or die. For 3,000 years, every species chose surrender. Then they found Earth. The humans were nothing special at first glance. They were small, barely reaching the chest of an average Velanthi warrior. They had no psychic powers. Their bodies were soft and fragile. They lived short lives of only 80 or 90 years. Their planet was a tiny blue dot in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy. The Velanthi Emperor at the time had laughed when he saw the intelligence reports. "These creatures fight each other constantly," he said to his council. "They have wars over land, over resources, over ideas. They cannot even unite their own world. They will fall in days." When their cities were bombed, they fought from the ruins. When their soldiers died, their children picked up weapons and continued fighting. The Velanthi killed millions of humans. It did not matter. More kept coming. The Empire had never seen anything like it. Other species surrendered when they saw they could not win. It was logical. It was rational. But humans did not seem to care about logic or rationality. They cared about something else, something the Velanthi did not understand. They called it freedom. She wanted to continue fighting. She wanted to burn Earth to ashes and scatter those ashes across the void. But her advisors showed her the numbers. The war was costing the Empire more resources than any conflict in their history. Other conquered species were watching. Some were beginning to whisper about rebellion. The Velanthi military was stretched thin, and the humans showed no signs of stopping. "We cannot win this war," the High Admiral told her. "Not without destroying ourselves in the process." The word tasted like poison in her mouth, but she was not a fool. She knew when a battle could not be won. "Then what do you suggest?" she asked coldly. The answer came from the Council of Elders, a political marriage. It was an ancient tradition, one that the Velanthi had used many times to absorb other species into their empire without further bloodshed. A marriage between the ruling houses would create a bond, a symbol of unity. The humans would become part of the empire not as conquered slaves, but as partners. Scifi hated the idea, but she agreed. Earth's response to the marriage proposal surprised everyone. The humans did not refuse. They did not negotiate for years. Within 1 month, they sent their answer. They would accept the marriage, but they would choose the representative themselves. The Velanthi expected Earth to send a prince, a president, or a great general, someone impressive, someone powerful. Someone who would at least look like he belonged next to the queen of the galaxy's greatest empire. Instead, they sent Ethan Cole. Scifi first saw her future husband through a holographic display. She stared at the image for a long time, saying nothing. Her advisors shifted nervously behind her. Ethan Cole was 28 years old. He was not tall, not by human standards, and certainly not by Velanthi standards. He had dark hair cut short and calm brown eyes. His face was not handsome in any remarkable way. He looked ordinary. "This is a joke," Scifi said finally. "They are mocking us. A common soldier, not even a general. That we deserve nothing better than this." The humans were treating this marriage as a sacrifice, sending someone disposable. It was insulting, but it was also understandable. She would have done the same in their position. "Very well," she said. "If the humans want to send me a pet, I will accept their pet. It changes nothing. The marriage is political. I have no intention of treating this human as anything more than a symbol." Ethan Cole arrived on the Velanthi flagship 3 weeks later. The ship was called the Eternal Dominion, and it was the largest vessel Ethan had ever seen. It was 5 kilometers long, bristling with weapons, carrying a crew of over 50,000. It could destroy a planet. It could destroy 100 planets. Ethan walked through its corridors with a small human escort, surrounded by Velanthi guards who towered over him. The aliens were impressive, he had to admit. They stood over 2 meters tall on average, with pale blue skin and silver eyes. Their bodies were lean but muscular, built for both strength and speed. They moved with the confidence of apex predators. They looked at Ethan like he was an insect. He did not mind. He had expected this. The throne room of the Eternal Dominion was vast and cold. Banners hung from the ceiling, displaying the symbols of conquered worlds. Hundreds of Velanthi nobles filled the chamber, all of them staring at the small human who walked toward their queen. And there she was. Queen Seraphis Velcora sat on a throne of black metal, raised on a platform so that she looked down on everyone in the room. She was tall even for a Velanthi, nearly 2.5 meters. Her skin was darker blue than most of her kind, and her silver eyes seemed to glow with cold light. She wore armor, not ceremonial robes, a statement that she was a warrior first and a queen second. She was, Ethan thought, genuinely terrifying, and beautiful in a way that was hard to describe. Like a storm was beautiful or a blade. He stopped at the base of her platform and bowed. Not deeply, Earth's diplomats had been very specific about that. A bow of respect, not submission. Commander Ethan Cole of Earth, a herald announced. Presented as consort to her Imperial Majesty, Queen Seraphis Velcora, ruler of the Velanthi Empire, conqueror of 1,000 worlds. The entire room was quiet, waiting for her response. "You are smaller than I expected," she said finally. Her voice was deep and resonant, carrying easily through the chamber. "Even for a human." "I apologize for the disappointment, Your Majesty," he said calmly. "Earth's taller candidates were busy." For a moment, Ethan thought she might order his execution right there. Instead, something strange happened. The corner of her mouth twitched, almost imperceptibly. "You have courage," she said. "Or perhaps you are simply too stupid to understand your situation." Ethan spent his last night as a free man in the quarters assigned to him, a small room by Velanthi standards, but larger than any apartment he had ever lived in on Earth. The walls were metal, cold, and gray. The bed was too large for him, designed for Velanthi bodies. Everything about this place reminded him that he did not belong here. He stood by the window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth was still spinning. People were living their lives, going to work, raising their children, falling in love. They were counting on him. They were counting on this marriage to bring peace, to give humanity time to recover, to rebuild. He could not fail them. A soft chime announced a visitor. Ethan turned as the door opened, revealing a Velanthi female in simple gray robes. She was younger than the queen, with softer features and curious eyes. "I am Velira," she said. "I have been assigned as your attendant. I am here to help you prepare for tomorrow's ceremony." "I do not know much about Velanthi wedding customs. The queen will mark you with her blood, and you will mark her with yours. This creates a bond that cannot be broken except by death. The mixing of blood represents the mixing of two lives, two peoples. No offense intended. Why would you agree to marry our queen?" "Expendable." Thousands of aliens filled the cathedral, their silver eyes fixed on the platform at the center where Queen Seraphis waited in ceremonial armor that gleamed like liquid night. Ethan walked down the aisle alone. He could feel their stares, their contempt, their amusement. To them, he was a curiosity at best, a joke at worst. The human pet who had somehow stumbled into the presence of gods. He kept his expression calm and his pace steady. He had faced Velanthi soldiers in combat. He had watched friends die. A few thousand hostile stares were nothing. When he reached the platform, he climbed the steps and stood before Seraphis. Up close, she was even more imposing. The top of his head barely reached her shoulder. "People of the Empire," Seraphis announced, her voice echoing through the cathedral. "Today we witness a union that ends a war and begins a new era. Today the humans join our family." The ceremony proceeded as Velira had described. Vows were exchanged, formal words about duty, honor, and unity. Then came the blood ritual. A Velanthi priest handed Seraphis a small ceremonial knife. She cut her palm without hesitation, letting blue blood well up from the wound. Then she handed the knife to Ethan. He took it, feeling the weight of it in his hand. The blade was sharp, designed to cut cleanly. He drew it across his palm, wincing slightly at the sting. Red blood dripped onto the platform. Seraphis extended her hand, and Ethan took it. Their blood mixed blue and red, and for a moment something strange passed between them, a flicker of connection there and gone. "It is done," the priest announced. "They are bound." Ethan released Seraphis's hand and stepped back. The ceremony was over. He was now officially the consort of the Velanthi queen. Then the attack came. It happened so fast that most people did not see it. A figure in the crowd, a Velanthi noble in ceremonial robes, drew a hidden blade and lunged toward the platform, toward Seraphis. The queen's guards were good. They were already moving, reaching for their weapons, but Ethan was faster. He did not think, he simply moved. One moment he was standing beside Seraphiz, and the next he was between her and the attacker. His hand shot out, grabbing the assassin's wrist. He twisted, using the alien's momentum against him, and the blade clattered to the floor. The assassin was twice his size. It did not matter. Ethan dropped low, swept the legs, and brought the Velanthe crashing down. Before the guards could even reach them, Ethan had the assassin pinned, arm locked in a position that would break bone if he applied more pressure. The entire exchange took less than 3 seconds. Silence fell over the cathedral. Thousands of Velanthe stared in disbelief at the small human who had just defeated one of their own with nothing but his bare hands. The guards finally arrived, pulling the assassin away and securing him. Ethan straightened, breathing hard, his hand still bleeding from the ceremonial cut. He turned to look at Seraphiz. The queen was staring at him. Her silver eyes were wide, her expression unreadable. For the first time since he had arrived, she was looking at him not as a pet or a joke, but as something else entirely. Something she did not understand. "You," she started, then stopped. She seemed to be struggling for words, which Ethan suspected was not something that happened often. "How did you do that?" "You moved faster than them." The crowd murmured around them, the shock slowly giving way to confused whispers. Finally, the queen spoke again, her voice softer now, meant only for him. "Perhaps," she said, "I have underestimated you, human." "Perhaps you have, your majesty." It had been built 3,000 years ago, when the Velanthe Empire was young and hungry for glory. Carved from black stone deep within the heart of a massive asteroid, it could hold 100,000 spectators. Great pillars rose toward a ceiling lost in shadow. Banners of conquered worlds hung from every surface, reminders of Velanthe supremacy. Today, every seat was filled. Nobles had traveled from across the galaxy to witness this event. Not because they expected anything impressive. No, they had come to watch a human fail. To watch him break, to laugh at the foolish creature who had dared to accept the Calvorath. Lord Kethvorin sat in a place of honor, his ice-blue eyes gleaming with anticipation. He had waited for this moment. After today, the human would be dead or disgraced, and the queen would be forced to admit that the marriage had been a mistake. Queen Seraphiz sat on her throne above the arena floor, her expression carefully neutral. She had not slept well the night before. She told herself it was because of political concerns, nothing more. And in the center of the arena stood Ethan Cole. He looked impossibly small against the vast black stone. He wore simple training clothes, gray fabric that left his arms bare. Compared to the towering Velanthe warriors around him, he looked like a child who had wandered into the wrong room. The crowd murmured with amusement. "Look at him," someone laughed. "He is so tiny." He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his brown eyes calm, his breathing steady. He had learned long ago that the noise of a crowd meant nothing. Only the challenge ahead mattered. A deep gong echoed through the arena. The trials had begun. The first trial, the mind. 5 Velanthe commanders materialized around him, each one controlling a separate army. Their forces outnumbered his 10 to 1. Their positions were superior. Their resources were greater. "You have 1 hour," the head judge announced. "Defeat all 5 commanders. If any of your forces remain at the end, you pass. If not, you fail." Instead, he did something the commanders did not expect. He retreated. His small army scattered into the hills, abandoning their base, abandoning their supplies, abandoning everything. The commanders laughed and pursued, confident in their victory. That was their first mistake. Ethan had studied Velanthe military history for weeks. He knew how they fought, with overwhelming force, direct confrontation, crushing superiority. They had never lost a war of strength, but they had also never fought an enemy who refused to play by those rules. He used the terrain against them. He set traps. He launched small attacks and then vanished before they could respond. He made them chase shadows while his real forces moved unseen. 30 minutes into the trial, the first commander's army was destroyed. Not by direct combat, but by exhaustion and confusion. His forces had chased Ethan's soldiers through swamps and mountains until they could barely stand, and then Ethan struck from 3 directions at once. The crowd grew quiet. "What is he doing?" someone asked. "I do not know," another admitted. "I have never seen tactics like this." He sacrificed small groups of soldiers to draw enemies into ambushes. He fought not like a Velanthe warrior, but like something else entirely. Something unpredictable, something relentless, something that did not care about honor or glory, only about winning. By the end of the hour, all 5 commanders had been defeated. Ethan stood alone on the simulated battlefield, his tiny remaining force battered but victorious. The hologram faded, and he was back in the arena, breathing hard, sweat dripping down his face. Silence. Then slowly whispers began to spread through the crowd. He won. Queen Seraphis leaned forward on her throne, her silver eyes fixed on her husband. For the first time, she felt something she had not expected: curiosity. The second trial, the body. This time it became an obstacle course designed to test physical endurance, walls to climb, pits to jump, barriers to break through. Every obstacle was sized for Velanthe bodies, meaning they were twice as challenging for a human. At the end of the course stood a pillar of light. Reach it and the trial was complete, simple in concept, impossible in execution. You have unlimited time, the judge announced. But the course will fight back. Every failure brings pain. Only your will determines how far you go. The first obstacle was a wall, 5 meters of smooth black stone. Velanthe warriors could jump and grab the top edge easily. For Ethan, it might as well have been a mountain. He ran at it anyway, leaping as high as he could. His fingers caught a tiny crack in the stone. He hung there for a moment, muscles screaming, then began to climb, inch by inch, centimeter by centimeter. The crowd watched in confusion. Why was he trying so hard? He was clearly too small, too weak. Why not just admit defeat? But Ethan did not stop. His fingers bled against the rough stone. His arms shook with exhaustion. Twice he slipped and nearly fell. But he kept climbing until finally, he pulled himself over the top. The crowd murmured. He dropped down the other side and immediately faced the next obstacle, a pit of freezing water that he had to swim across. The cold hit him like a hammer, stealing his breath, cramping his muscles. But he swam. Stroke after stroke, gasping for air until he reached the other side. Then came the barriers, thick metal walls that Velanthe warriors were supposed to break through with their strength. Ethan could not break them, so he found another way. He studied each barrier, looking for weak points, loose bolts, gaps he could squeeze through. Where strength failed, he used intelligence. Halfway through the course, something unexpected happened. Ethan fell. He was climbing a rope ladder when his grip failed. He dropped 3 meters and hit the ground hard. The crowd heard the crack of breaking bone, his left arm fractured at the forearm. Everyone expected him to stop. The trial was over. No one could continue with a broken arm. Ethan stood up. His face was pale with pain. His broken arm hung uselessly at his side, but he walked to the next obstacle and began climbing again with one arm. The arena went silent. "What is he doing?" Valera whispered from her seat among the servants. "He is injured. He should stop." He crawled through mud. He dragged himself over walls. He swam through freezing water with one arm while the other screamed in agony. Blood dripped from his wounds. His body shook with exhaustion and pain. And still he kept going. Queen Seraphis rose from her throne without realizing it. She could not look away. None of them could. This was not supposed to be possible. Humans were weak, fragile. They broke easily. Everyone knew this. But this human was not breaking. He was bending, cracking, bleeding, and still moving forward. Why? Kethvorin breathed. Why does he not stop? His body was a ruin, broken arm, torn muscles, countless cuts and bruises. He could barely breathe, but he had passed. For the first time in history, the Velanthe crowd did not know how to react. Some sat in stunned silence. Others whispered to each other in disbelief. A few, very few, began to understand that they were witnessing something remarkable. Medics rushed to Ethan's side, but he waved them away. "Not yet," he gasped. "One more trial." "Your body." Their minds were disciplined, ordered, trained from birth to resist mental assault. The trial of spirit tested that discipline by subjecting the participant to a direct psychic attack, waves of fear, despair, and pain designed to break the will. Most Velanthe warriors could withstand it for several minutes before surrendering. No one expected the human to last more than seconds. Ethan stood in the center of the arena, barely able to remain upright. 5 Velanthe psychics surrounded him, their silver eyes glowing with power. "Begin," the judge commanded. The psychics attacked. Ethan felt it immediately, a wave of pressure against his mind, like a hand trying to crush his skull from the inside. Fear flooded through him. Despair, memories of every failure, every loss, every moment of pain in his life. He saw his family dying in the war. He saw his friends falling beside him. He felt the loneliness of the prisoner, the desperation of the survivor, the weight of a world on his shoulders. The psychics pushed harder, expecting his mind to shatter. Instead, they found something they had never encountered before. A human mind. It was not disciplined like a Velanthi mind. It was not ordered or controlled. It was chaos, a storm of emotions, memories, fears, hopes, and dreams all mixed together in a hurricane of consciousness. The psychics tried to find a foothold, a weakness they could exploit. But every time they grabbed something, it slipped away, replaced by something else. It was like trying to hold water, like trying to catch fire. And underneath all that chaos, there was something else. Will, pure, stubborn, unbreakable will. One of the psychics gasped and staggered back, breaking contact. His face was pale with shock. "What is wrong?" the judge demanded. "His mind," the psychic breathed. I cannot describe it. It is pain and joy and rage and love all at once. It does not stop, it does not rest, it just keeps fighting." They had expected to crush a weak human mind. Instead, they were drowning in it. "This is impossible," another psychic said. "No mind should be able to withstand." The arena erupted in chaos. Nobles shouted in disbelief. The psychics retreated, unable to continue. Lord Kethvorin slammed his fist against his chair, fury twisting his face. And Queen Seraphis stood frozen on her throne, staring at the small, broken, impossible human who had just defeated every challenge her empire could throw at him. "The trial is complete," the judge announced, his voice shaking. "The human passes." His heart had stopped. His brain was losing oxygen. His broken body had finally given up. Queen Seraphis found herself standing without remembering when she had risen. Her hands gripped the railing of her throne platform so tightly that the metal bent under her fingers. "Save him," she commanded. Her voice carried across the arena, silencing the chaos. "Do whatever it takes, save him." They pumped oxygen into his lungs. For 4 minutes, nothing worked. Then, impossibly, Ethan's heart began to beat again. A gasp swept through the crowd. The medics stared at their instruments in disbelief. His vital signs were stabilizing, not just stabilizing, improving. His body was healing at a rate that should not have been possible for any known species. "What is happening?" one medic whispered. "This does not make sense." They carried him out of the arena on a stretcher, and the crowd sat in stunned silence. No one knew what to say. No one knew what to think. A human had completed the Kalvorath. A human had died and come back. Everything they believed about this species was wrong. Lord Kethvorin watched the medics carry the human away, and he felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear. Not of the human himself. No, Ethan Cole was just one small creature, barely worth noticing. But Kethvorin was afraid of what this meant. He was afraid of what would happen if people started believing that humans were worthy of respect. The marriage was supposed to be a joke. The human was supposed to fail. Instead, he had become a symbol, proof that even the weakest species could stand against the might of the Velanthi Empire. This could not be allowed to continue. Kethvorin rose from his seat and walked quietly out of the arena. He had plans to make. The human had won today, but the game was far from over. Ethan woke up 3 days later in a medical chamber. The ceiling above him was white and smooth, glowing with soft light. Machines surrounded his bed, monitoring his vital signs, pumping healing compounds into his blood. His entire body ached, but the pain was distant, dulled by medication. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. "Do not move," a voice said. "Your body is still recovering." The young Velanthi attendant looked exhausted, as if she had not slept in days. "How long?" Ethan asked. His voice was rough, barely a whisper. 3 days, your heart stopped for 4 minutes. The medics thought you were dead." Everything went dark. Then I heard voices far away calling me back. "You are the first non-Velanthi in history to complete the Kalvorath. Your bones are healing 10 times faster than they should. Your muscles are rebuilding themselves. They say it is impossible. Some of them are afraid. You made the entire empire question what they know about humans." She was alone, without guards or attendants. She wore simple clothing instead of her usual armor, a flowing robe of deep blue that made her silver eyes seem brighter. She moved quietly, almost hesitantly, as if she was not sure she should be there. Valera immediately stood and bowed. "Your Majesty, I did not know you were coming. I will leave you." "Only for 4 minutes," Ethan replied. "That is not funny. And no one can explain how." She sat down in the chair Valera had vacated, her movements stiff and uncertain. "The medics say your body is healing at an impossible rate. They want to study you." I told them no. Seraphis looked away, her expression troubled. "Why did you do it? Why did you push so hard? You could have surrendered. No one would have blamed you." "When I was captured during the war, I spent 3 months as a prisoner. Every day they hurt me. Every day they told me I was weak, worthless, broken. They wanted me to believe it. They wanted me to give up. Pain is temporary. Shame is not. If I had given up, I would have had to live with that choice forever. So I decided that I would rather die fighting than live defeated." "You killed 12 guards. Not because we are strong, but because we refuse to accept that we are weak. I have crushed rebellions. I have never met anyone who made me question myself." She looked at him with those silver eyes. "Until you. Your body needs time to heal. I did it because your death would have caused political problems." She was lying. 1 week later, Lord Kethforin made his move. It happened during a council meeting. The Queen was discussing trade agreements with the outer colonies when suddenly the doors burst open and soldiers flooded into the chamber. But they were not the Queen's soldiers. They wore the colors of House Kethforin, black and silver, and their weapons were pointed directly at the throne. "What is the meaning of this?" Seraphis demanded, rising to her feet. Kethforin stepped forward, a satisfied smile on his face. "Forgive me, your majesty, but I am afraid your reign has come to an end. You have made us look weak in the eyes of the galaxy." He gestured to his soldiers. "The fleet is under my control now. The military commanders have pledged their loyalty to me. You have no power here." Her own guards were outnumbered and outgunned. The council members sat frozen in their seats, too afraid to move. She was trapped. "You will be confined to your quarters," Kethforin continued. "The human will be executed publicly, as a demonstration that the Empire does not bow to lesser species, and I will take my rightful place as ruler. That is how power works, your majesty. Surely you understand that." He pushed himself out of bed, ignoring the pain that shot through his healing body. Something was wrong. He could feel it. The door opened and Valera rushed in, her face pale with fear. "You have to run," she said. "Lord Kethforin has seized the ship. He is going to execute you." "What do you mean, no? Why would you risk your life for her? And where I come from, we do not abandon family. And tell me where they are keeping the Queen." Far away, in the darkness of space, something was happening. Sensors on the edge of the Velanthi system detected a disturbance, a ripple in hyperspace that grew larger with each passing second. The officers monitoring those sensors did not know what to make of it. Then the ripple tore open and ships began pouring through. Human ships, 200 of them arranged in perfect formation, armed with weapons that did not exist in any Velanthi database. They moved with precision and purpose, heading directly for the heart of the system. A transmission broadcast across all frequencies, cutting through every communication channel in the Velanthi fleet. A single sentence in perfect Velanthi language. "We would like him back." The galaxy had never seen anything like it. 200 human warships faced 2,000 Velanthi vessels. The numbers were impossible. The odds were laughable. Every military analyst in the Empire calculated the same result. The humans would be destroyed in minutes. Lord Kethforin stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, watching the human fleet approach on the main display. He smiled with contempt. "This is their rescue attempt?" he laughed. 200 ships against our entire armada. The humans are even more foolish than I thought." They remembered how many soldiers the Empire had lost trying to conquer Earth. They remembered that humans never fought the way they were supposed to. "Destroy them," Kethforin commanded. "Leave no survivors." He had spent his recovery time studying the ship's layout, memorizing every passage, every security checkpoint, every possible route. The soldiers searching for him expected a wounded man running in panic. They did not expect a predator hunting in the shadows. Ethan took them down one by one. He did not fight fair. He could not afford to. Every soldier he encountered was larger and stronger than him. So he used surprise, speed, and precision. He struck from darkness, targeting weak points, throats, knees, the sensitive spots behind their ears that his training had identified. Each fallen soldier gave him better weapons, first a knife, then a pistol, then a rifle. Valera followed behind him, terrified but determined to help. "The queen is being held in the command tower," she whispered, "but it is heavily guarded, at least 30 soldiers." What kind of distraction? The human ships were smaller and fewer, but they moved in ways that defied prediction. They did not form traditional battle lines. They did not engage in direct confrontations. Instead, they danced through the Velanthe formation like water through fingers. Admiral Chen Wei commanded the human fleet from the bridge of the Indomitable. She was 63 years old, a veteran of the First Contact War, and she had spent 2 years preparing for this moment. "Remember your training," she said calmly to her crew. "They expect us to fight like them. We will not. We will fight like humans." They targeted engines and weapon systems instead of trying to destroy ships outright. They created confusion instead of seeking glory. The Velanthe commanders grew frustrated. Every time they thought they had trapped a human squadron, it slipped away. Every time they concentrated their firepower, the humans were already somewhere else. "What are they doing?" one Velanthe captain demanded. "This makes no sense." Humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They had developed tactics for every situation imaginable: guerrilla warfare, psychological operations, misdirection, and deception. They knew how to fight when outnumbered because they had been outnumbered in countless wars throughout their history. And they knew something else, something the Velanthe had never learned. Sometimes, winning was not about destroying your enemy. Sometimes it was about making your enemy destroy himself. Kethvorin watched the battle unfold with growing rage. "Why are we not winning?" he shouted at his admirals. "We have 10 times their numbers. They do not stay still long enough for us to target them. And their weapons, we have never seen technology like this." Warning lights flashed across every console. What was that? "Use some kind of stealth shuttle we did not detect." The admiral swallowed hard. "They are heading for the command tower." The sound of gunfire echoed through the corridors, followed by shouts in English, his language the language of home. He moved toward the sound and found a squad of human soldiers engaged in combat with Velanthe guards. "Commander Cole," the squad leader shouted when he saw Ethan. "We are here to extract you, sir. The Queen is not our concern." They had all heard the stories about Commander Cole. They knew what he had done in the war, what he had survived, what he was capable of. "Yes, sir," the squad leader said finally. "Lead the way." Queen Seraphis sat in her cell, her wrists bound with energy cuffs, her pride wounded more than her body. She had never imagined this could happen. Kethvorin's betrayal had been swift and complete. Her own military had turned against her. Everything she had built was crumbling. And somewhere out there, her husband was probably dead. She closed her eyes, trying not to think about Ethan Cole. She had told herself she did not care about him. She had told herself he was just a political convenience. But when she had seen him collapse in the arena when his heart had stopped, she had felt something break inside her. She did not understand these feelings. She did not want them. But they were there. The door to her cell exploded inward. Seraphis looked up, expecting to see Kethvorin's soldiers coming to take her to her execution. Instead, she saw Ethan Cole. He stood in the doorway, a human rifle in his hands, covered in sweat and blood, some of it his own, most of it not. Behind him, human soldiers secured the corridor, and Valera peeked out nervously from behind a wall. "Your Majesty," Ethan said with a slight smile, "I believe you need a rescue. You should be escaping with your people. That makes you family, whether you like it or not." "Yes," Ethan agreed, "but I'm a fool who keeps his promises." They fought their way to the bridge. Seraphis had never seen humans fight up close. She had studied their tactics from a distance, analyzed their strategies in military reports. But watching Ethan and his soldiers in action was something entirely different. They moved together like a single organism. They communicated without speaking, anticipating each other's actions. When one fell, another immediately filled the gap. They were not as strong as Velanthe warriors, not as fast, not as durable, but they fought with something the Velanthe did not have: desperation, love, the knowledge that failure meant losing everything. They reached the bridge just as Kethvorin was preparing to evacuate. The traitor lord stood surrounded by his personal guards, his face twisted with fury and fear. "You," he snarled when he saw Ethan. "The human pet, I should have killed you the moment you arrived. I am a lord of the Empire, I have rights. He is just a human." With Kethvorin dead and the Queen restored to power, the rebel fleet lost their leader. Some ships surrendered immediately. Others tried to flee and were captured by the human fleet. Within hours, the coup was over. Seraphis stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, looking out at the stars. The human fleet hung in space alongside her loyal ships, two former enemies standing together. Ethan stood beside her. "Your people came for you," she said quietly. "They came for us," he corrected. "For the alliance we represent." This small, fragile human who had endured torture and captivity, who had completed an impossible trial, who had died and come back, who had fought through an army to save her. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you care so much? Your people have every reason to hate us. We invaded your world. We killed millions of you. I am tired of death. I want something better for my people, for everyone." Her fingers were long and elegant, dwarfing his smaller human hand, but somehow it felt right. "You are the strangest creature I have ever met," she said. "Thank you." 1 week later, Queen Seraphis addressed the entire Velanthe Empire. She stood on the steps of the imperial palace, broadcast across 1,000,000 worlds. Beside her stood Ethan Cole, no longer a joke or a pet, but a symbol of something new. "My people," she said, her voice carrying across the stars. "We have ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. We have conquered and dominated because we believed we were the strongest, the most powerful, the most worthy. We were wronged. It is about the courage to keep fighting even when victory seems impossible." She raised her hand, and Ethan raised his alongside it. Two hands, human and Velanthe, joined together. "Today I declare that humanity is no longer a subject species. They are our allies, our partners. Our equals." Her voice grew stronger. "Together we will build something new, not an empire of conquest, but an alliance of cooperation, not domination, but partnership." It was not universal approval. There were still many who hated the idea, who would resist the change. But it was a beginning. Later that night, Seraphis and Ethan stood alone on a balcony overlooking the imperial city. "You know this will not be easy," she said. "Many of my people will resist. There will be challenges, conflicts, perhaps more rebellions. But being afraid has never stopped me before." "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Ethan took her hand again, and this time she did not pull away. "Now we build something better together." Across the galaxy, other species watched the broadcast. They saw the Velanthe queen holding hands with a human. They heard her words about partnership and equality. Some felt fear. If the mighty Velanthe could be humbled by humans, what did that mean for everyone else? Some felt hope. Perhaps the age of conquest was finally ending. But all of them learned the same lesson. Humans were small, fragile, short-lived, and that was exactly what made them terrifying, because a species that knew it could die at any moment fought differently than one that expected to live forever. They loved harder. They dreamed bigger. They refused to give up, even when giving up was the logical choice. The universe would never look at them the same way again. The end epilogue. Children grew up in a galaxy where cooperation was possible. Queen Seraphis and Commander Ethan Cole became legends, the warrior queen and the impossible human who had turned enemies into allies. They had 2 children, a boy with his father's calm eyes and his mother's silver hair, and a girl with her mother's height and her father's stubborn will. When people asked Ethan what his secret was, how a single human had changed the destiny of the galaxy, he always gave the same answer. "I did not change anything. I just refused to give up." That is what humans do. But because of what they chose to be, the end